church. This afternoon we are going to share a very important message, particularly directed to the youths. And Paul saw this very important when he was addressing the young preacher Timothy, whom he had commissioned to carry the work of the Lord. It's either he was in Ephesus or at Thessalonica, between the two congregations. That's when we see his writing to the young preacher Timothy in chapter number 4, verse number 12, which reads as follows. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. So this passage emphasizes the role that a youth can play at any congregation. And these are some of the areas which we ignore as youths and think that we are not of any importance at any congregation. Now, Paul here emphasizes to the young preacher Timothy that number one, you must not let anyone despise you because you are a youth. And this is a common practice, of course, with adults. We as adults, we tend to look down upon the youths and think that there's nothing we can learn from them. But I want to assure you this afternoon that the youths, as youths, you have a lot of things that you can show the believers. You can also be an exemplar to the believers. Now, Paul mentions the following areas. Number one, he says you should show the believers an example in speech. As youths, you know that youths have got their own way of, let me call it a funny way of talking to one another, which is not familiar to us as adults. You develop your own ways and words by which you can clearly understand one another. The language you call slang or whatever modern language that you use. And we as adults, we tend not to understand that language. And so according to Paul, he is saying to the young preacher Timothy, you need to set an example in speech. In other words, what you say, the words that you say should benefit those that hear you. As he says in the book of Ephesians, he says, your words that you speak must be seasoned with the salt for the benefit of those that hear you. And so as youths, Paul is saying, set the believers an example in speech. So your speech should be up to standard. It should be full of respect and benefits those that hear. Number two, he says, set the believer an example in conduct. Now, by conduct, this is the way you behave yourself. Your character is displayed in relation to a situation. The way you react to a situation, this is how you conduct yourself. So your behavior molds your character. And so, as a youth, you should aim at being the salt of the earth as well as the light of the world. So number three, he says, you must also set the believers an example in love. You need to show love. As a Christian, you should show generally the model of God's love, that we should call the agape type of love, which is the unconditional type of love. That you should show to the brethren. Do not be selective in service in the church, or be selective in how we react or respond to other members of the congregation. Love them all equally, so that none should see any discrepancy in your love for for the church. And the fourth one, he says, faith. A youth should be exemplary in faith. Faith, which is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, according to Hebrews chapter 11, verse number 1. A youth should set the believer as an example by being dedicated to duty, by loving God, and being of service to your local congregation. This really shows how much faith you have got and how faithful you are. We have an example of this young preacher, Timothy. If you read in Acts chapter 16, verse number 2, the word says he was spoken well of by the brethren in Lystra and in Iconium, which means he was quite a good and influential young man. That's when Paul and Barnabas decided to take him along on their second missionary journey. Lastly, he says, set the believer as an example in purity. Now, purity is the act of shunning what is evil. You hate what is evil and avoid bad company. As youth, you are exposed to friends and exposed also to peer pressure, where you end up giving in to the influences of your friends. Paul also says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. So in an effort for you to remain pure before God, shun bad company and keep to good morals. Now, to sum up what we have learned today, or things in which as a youth you need to be exemplary to the believers. Set the believers an example in the following areas. Number 1, speech. Number 2, in purity. Number 3, in conduct. Number 4, in love. And number 5, in faith. So there are 5 areas in which we got to set the believers an example. Number 1, love. 2, faith. 3, purity. 4, speech. And 5, in your conduct. So if you put these things into practice, you'll be an exemplary youth among the brethren. And this will earn you great respect as a youth in the church. God bless you. I thank you.